Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conscious Body Conversations. I am your host, Jessie Lucas of Embodied Movement Training, and we have a sizzler of a topic for you today. Today's empowered health topic is alcohol. And not just alcohol, but specifically this kind of culture of what it is to drink or to not drink as a woman these days. And partially from, the health perspective of what is going on in your body, but also from a kind of collective perspective of what's going on in our conditioning. And I'm going to save kind of some of the juicy stuff about those points when you get to hear from my dear friend Erin Baker, who you've heard from before if you've been catching up on this series. She has been a guest before. She is a health coach. She's working on her doctorate. She has just got this wealth of knowledge. She has a background in research science. One of my favorite parts about Erin is how freaking badass she is. So I will tell you, I'll just kind of prime this topic, and then Erin, I'm going to turn it over to you. So Erin brought to my attention several months ago a book called Quit Like a Woman. And there it is, Quit Like a Woman. We're going to talk more specifically about that. So the concepts in this conversation are going to be a lot inspired by that book. So if this conversation speaks to you, I can't recommend this book highly enough. When Erin brought it to my attention, I wasn't quite ready to hear it. I will say that I know the stories I share today, I'm sure Erin too, these are our stories. They're from our personal perspectives, from our professional perspectives. They are not meant to be medical advice. If you need help when it comes to alcohol, please reach out, get the help you need. If you don't know who to go to, please contact one of us and we can help connect you. And I will kind of wrap this little introduction before I turn it over to Erin with this, is that not only do I believe the entire field of health and wellness needs a more empowered perspective, which is why this whole video series came to be in the first place. These are conversations on empowered health, but more of a female empowered perspective. You are going to hear when Erin gets going here about how, especially around alcohol, women have been conditioned to think a certain way, behave a certain way. And I think that goes for all aspects and elements of health. This one being such a hot topic. So if you're not quite ready for this, maybe pause, take a deep breath, and hit play again. But I encourage you to kind of like ground in your seat, have an open heart, have an open mind as we share some of these stories on how to quit like a woman. So Erin, one of my favorite people in the health and wellness field and here in New York, just remind us a little bit about who you are, your background, what you're doing, and then what inspired this book to get in front of you, and what were some of your favorite nuggets from it, and we can start there.
Okay. Yeah, I have over 20 years in the healthcare field in laboratory science and research. I've researched solely for probably over 15 years. And I, along that journey, started to realize pills are not the answer. It wasn't helping me in any way. And I kind of fell into more holistic natural health is actually helping me and curing my illnesses and actually drastically improving my life. And I became really passionate about combining those two because I think that's so overlooked. It tends to be you're one of two, you're either only Western medicine or you're only holistic. And I think there's a huge disconnect, and they both go together so nicely. They each have a purpose in our overall health, and they both can be used in like really perfectly. I mean, if you're having an acute illness, you need to go to the hospital. You need to be given some painkillers. This needs to be dealt with. You need to go to surgery, those type of things. If you have, some inflammation, you shouldn't be taking a pill. You should be changing your diet. You should be, looking at your mindset, the toxins in your environment. You should be taking, a different approach, right? And combining those two together, you can have really great outcomes. And that's really the goal, right? Is you want to live as long as possible, but you want to live as healthy as possible, as long as possible. You don't want to live to 100 years chronically ill. You want to enjoy it. And so basically what happened to me is I contracted COVID last year, and it took me out, completely took me out. And the post-COVID syndrome actually was worse than COVID. So about a month after, I found myself like splitting headaches. I had such severe vertigo, brain fog. I kept forgetting things. I remember driving and it felt like if I looked out the window, my head started to spin. It was very scary. So at the same time, Chrissy Teigen started talking about this book. And I was like, I need to detox. I need to do something to help get this toxin out of my system. And I'm like, why not? Something about it stuck out to me. So I read her book, and I stopped for about at least a good 3 months. And in those 3 months, my sense of taste and smell came back. My brain fog disappeared. My sleep was dramatically improved. I mean, my skin started looking better, like everything. And I'm like, I'm a healthcare professional, and I was raised by Dr. Oz saying a glass of wine a day is okay, right? It's not, it's a neurotoxin. I know better. Like the way she puts it in perspective, we know better, right? We know it's bad for us. And especially as women, we're being taught, we're in a day and age where it's okay to drink, right? Mommy wine time. It's okay. This is how to de-stress. And it's just the wrong way to look at it. We shouldn't be reaching for alcohol to deal with our stress.
I want to go into that part, this mommy wine time part. Erin and I are both moms and have, both have teenage boys, and there are a lot of days at the end of the day, sometimes in the middle of the day, sometimes first thing, right? That you were like, I have got like, I need some help here. And sometimes that help looks like a glass of wine or, whatever it looks like. But before we go into that part, I want to just, I don't want to harp on this part, but that neurotoxin piece, I had a similar transition as you, different kind of approach. I wasn't coming off of a COVID situation, but just so I'm 43. I'm in a time my hormones are changing, right? I have my own, I work in health and wellness as well. So I have my own amazing things that I do to take care of myself. And I'd say over this past year or so, I've just been like almost feeling like there's something where I'm shooting myself in the foot here, that all of these positive things that I'm doing for my health, I'm taking my walks, I do, some sort of meditation or mindfulness practice or that kind of thing. I have some great products that I'm using to help everything kind of work really, high function from the inside out. I am a master hydrator. I always have my water and my immunity boosting things and my nootropics around, like, all of these things. And it has been a clear message for a while now. I'm doing something that's shooting me in the foot. All of these things that should make me feel so bright, I still felt like every day I woke up and it was just like I got to grind the gears to get starting again. And honestly, the thing that really kicked me, it wasn't dealing with a viral infection. It was more dealing with kind of emotional eruptions. My word of this year, if you guys have been watching, is fun. Fun 2021 is my little hashtag there for the year. And I realized like I had some underlying anxiety that I was like, all right, this first half-ish or however much of my life, I don't want to go into this next chapter with this. I want more joy. I want more fun. This, being a single parent has been hard. I'm in another place in my life now, and I want that vitality back. And a few things kind of happened all together that made me say, the light bulb went off, and I said, you know what? I think it's the alcohol. I think it's that, glass of wine or two, or however many at the end of the night to unwind. It's the, the brunches with my girlfriends. And, I think it's the alcohol. So read the book, totally eliminated it for a good full month, and the lights came back on. I felt like I had access to joy like I hadn't had before. I felt like I wasn't fighting all of those good other moves I was doing. And I felt like, and this kind of transitions to the conditioning piece, something that had a grip on me didn't have a grip on me anymore. I felt like I was duped. Now, I will say like this, I myself personally have not committed to like this a full on sobriety thing. I'm exploring what my relationship is going to be. Um, so I don't want to tout like, I've got all the answers. I certainly don't. I am in it, in an exploration myself. But that biological part of the energy load it takes to metabolize alcohol and what the gunk you are left with, the biochemicals that are produced in order to metabolize alcohol. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh my gosh, what a heavy, heavy load that is. So I want to get into the conditioning part and the feminist perspective and the empowerment, but can you just, because you are so wise on this level, can you speak to that part, that kind of metabolic load it takes?
Well, you have to think it's a neurotoxin, and it basically destroys your neurological functions, right? That's pretty much what it comes down to. And you have to think that we are somehow very complacent when it comes to alcohol, not really understanding this, how toxic it is, but it's in the same category as lead, as tetanus. We've all known what happens if you we've all seen the stories, right? This is why we get a tetanus shot. But that's okay. We keep injecting ourselves with something. We wouldn't, if there was lead in your house, would you, oh, I'm going to eat that paint chip? No, it's crazy. We don't want lead in our bodies. We don't want to have tetanus. We don't want any rabid animal to bite us because we know how bad that could be. Alcohol is that same exact category. Not to mention it's known to cause, at least 7 types of cancer at this point. Liver disease. It affects diabetes. It causes Alzheimer's. There's crazy things that it's known and directly correlated to, and we're like, it's okay. It's okay. Dr. Oz says, it's fine. It's fine. I can have one tonight, when it's so obviously blatantly bad for us.
I loved in the book where she transitioned at some point when she was describing this piece right here. And she said, it's ethanol.
Yeah.
It's ethanol. And then she kept just saying that, like, instead of saying alcohol or wine or booze or whatever, she would say it's ethanol. And I'm like, oh my God, like that harshness. And now, the couple of times I have had a drink since taking a big break and like really, 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 massively slowing down and taking it to a minimum. I can, it almost now feels like, oh, here's the workload. Here's the, my body almost has to go into like fighting to process it mode. But that's something I lost the sensitivity to because of that normalcy.
You were constantly doing that. That's why you lost your sensitivity, because you were constantly doing that, and I was the exact same way. Exactly. And, now it's, if I, and I have a glass of wine here and there, but I'll tell you, it's amazing how much I've reduced the amount when I do drink. And I know going into it, I'm going to have to really, really detox and pay attention to my body for at least the next week or so after, because it's going, and now I'm so sensitive to it. It directly affects my sleep. I cannot sleep well at all if I have any alcohol. I don't know if you noticed that. It's like I'm immediately, oh, I'm not going to sleep well tonight. At your blood sugar, you'll notice you're craving sweets after, and it's amazing the effects. And I think it's between 3 and 6 months after, if you completely stop drinking, most people tend to actually go into a phase where they feel like they have mono, or they feel like something is wrong with them, because it's another detox process. Because 6 months without alcohol, 3 months, you think you're done. No, your body's still healing and a whole nother process kicks in, and your body is wiped out. So think of how long that's staying in your body. It isn't 24 hours, it's done. Just because you might have a blood test to test you for ethanol, it doesn't mean that it's completely out of all of your organs and all of those other areas. It's just out of your blood. It's metabolized out of your blood. It's still sitting everywhere else. And I think that's mind-blowing to most people, is most people don't take it that far to even realize that.
Yeah. And I think that that's what, even just in a shorter experience or experiment that I have done, even just kind of lifting one of those layers of where it's saturated in my body, I gained that back. I gained that back in energy and better sleep. And like, I mean, for me, that like the happiness, ease, and joy part, like I said, I have not figured this out. I am still on this fun 2021 journey. But it's funny because you think about like, most people probably put alcohol in the category of fun. I'm going to have, fun with my friends or fun, like it's in the category of fun. And I'm like mind blown that this is probably, at least for me personally, one of the keys to more joy and more fun is less or no alcohol. Okay, if you want to learn more about the biochemical details, do read the book because she goes
Yeah, she goes
into
right into
Holly
it.
Whitaker goes into more details there. I want to talk about the conditioning part, but specifically starting with, in the book, she makes this huge discrepancy between how quitting alcohol is taught. And she talks about it like, if you need to quit alcohol, the finger is pointed and something is wrong with you. You are to blame. And so you need to correct your wrongdoings. You need to make yourself, this alcohol is bigger than you. And so you need to make yourself smaller and more humble. And so that you can surrender to this breakup.
Yeah, you must admit you're broken, basically.
Correct. That is what what we are taught. And a lot of the support structures around quitting are very driven to control that brokenness. And Holly says, I am calling BS on that. We women are drinking because you have made us believe we are broken. We actually need to experience our wholeness. We need to get louder and be heard. We need to take up more space in our fullness.
Mm-hmm.
We need to assert ourselves that we drink as, I mean, in my family, it has been called coping juice when the kids are crazy. Like, that is a term we have used in my family, coping. We've taught to use this to cope, to use this to numb, to use this to get through, to use this to Netflix and chill, to use, all of these things, instead of like, just, I'm okay who I am in my messy, amazing awesomeness. So can you speak to, I mean, you do work in empowerment, you do work in whole health, you do work in, I mean, the message I see coming out of you is just, it are those things, those powerful things. So can you speak to your interpretation of how Quit Like a Woman kind of shined a flashlight on, all right, if we've come to the place in our life where we realize we need to quit or reduce alcohol, but these structures that support it feel very harmful. They feel very controlling. They feel very, they're making me feel worse and I can't do it.
And, and they're almost making you admit defeat and that you're weak. Right. And I think that's where it's all wrong, is it's like you're telling someone you're a bad girl because you couldn't manage this properly. And they're saying you quitting is going to be the scarlet letter on you for the rest of your life, that you're a failure, that you couldn't handle it like everyone else. You're different. And I think that's crazy, and because you're making a change to better yourself and your health, you are now stigmatized as an alcoholic or a non-drinker or something which somehow the society has deemed bad, which I think is hilarious. And when really it should be, celebrated. You're taking care of your health, you're taking care of your life, you're working on you, because the direct correlation between somebody who's drinking, and I'm not talking about someone maybe once a month they go out and have a drink. I'm talking about like the me who I was having a glass of wine most nights to whatever, is that I'm connecting with the wine because I'm not connecting with something else, right? And that's where we need to focus on, is that person that you're now condemning as broken is actually trying to take a step to connect with themselves, connect with the world again, and you're telling them that's wrong. When in every way, shape, and form, that's what they should be doing. That's them finally stepping into their power, and you're trying to diminish that power. That's what I find, like, that's what I find crazy. And that's what I really stress when I talk to people is, this is a great thing. And this is where you need to really get, like you said, take up more space, get louder and own it, because it's you, it's you taking your power back when you have been told to be quiet your whole life, right? Been told to be submissive, to not be, you're too much. And now you've decided, oh, I'm going to have that drink to disconnect from my true self. Well, when you start to connect again, it's going to get messy, it's going to get raw, and that's beautiful, the messiness. And that's what you have to accept, is that it's going to get beautiful and it's going to get messy, and that's perfect because you're perfect.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And so just on a practical level, she suggests in this book, I've done a lot of work in habit changing, and I think in anything like, the science behind that says, habit replacement is the thing. Like, instead of trying to just like eliminate this and just say, I'm stopping, and now that's going to magically go away, but to habit replace. And, she goes on into a lot of the beautiful things that she had to do and messed up, right? Like, it fits and starts at times. And, whether it's resources like this book, or like hearing other people's stories, or, some of the great holistic health practices, meditation, yoga, go have cooking dates with your friends where you can just all create nourishing food, and have that take up a night, so you're not going right to the bottle, but you're going right to your friend's house and you're all making lasagna, or whatever it is. But so that habit replacement. And one of the other things that really stood out to me is, and not to say one way is right or wrong. I think that it's kind of different for different people, but something I never really thought of before. We hear a lot when people do quit alcohol one day at a time. And this constant, like, you gotta muster up the energy all over again every single day to make the healthy decision versus making the easy decision. And I don't know about you, but that feels very exhausting to me. That when I'm like, I have enough on my plate that I have to muster up the energy for every single day. And I don't need another hard thing on my plate. Life seems to throw them at you regardless, right?
Oh, exactly.
So to choose to add another hard and grueling thing. And, if that works for you, that kind of like one day at a time thing, I'm again, not saying that that's wrong, but there was a certain relief. And I think from this more kind of female empowered perspective, maybe some of the folks watching and listening to this might appreciate this level of relief. I love what she said about, what if you just make the decision and it's done? And you don't have to make that decision anymore. And my guess is that it's a very different decision if you are making the decision of zero alcohol from now until, and then that's just that's just what it is, or whether it is to really kind of like completely disrupt your relationship with alcohol so that it is just the very once in a while thing. If you were like Erin and I, that, like one or a couple of glasses of wine a night to, unwind from your working mom day. But that just one time decision of like, this is my path now.
That's actually, it's funny that you said that, is because that's how I quit smoking back in the day. So I was that, it was very popular in the 90s, clove cigarettes, smoking. I don't know if you remember, I'm aging myself, right? So that's literally how I stopped smoking. Is something, I thought about it going back and forth. I know it's bad. We all know it's bad. But the more I was like the humming and hawing, you'd still end up back there. All my friends smoked. You could still smoke at bars. You could smoke when you went out in restaurants. And then I just remember waking up one day and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm done. And my mother will tell you that's also how I stopped sucking my thumb, is that they were threatening all kinds of crazy stuff, like the horrible tasting stuff to put in your thumb. And I literally was like, so I'll just stop. And it's a mindset of like, I'm just not a smoker anymore. I'm just not going to do it anymore. And there's something that happens in your brain where like the next time you are around a cigarette, you're like, but I'm not a smoker. It's not, I'm trying to quit or I'm cutting back. It's just, nope. Instead, I wanted to be a mom. And I knew being a mom meant not smoking for me. That wasn't, those two did not drive together. Wasn't going to be that mom. You know, didn't want my kids to grow up seeing that, didn't want them being exposed to it. And there was really nothing else to discuss after that.
It's, you know, it's funny, I can relate. So when I finally, per your suggestion, read this book and made this decision, I looked at my calendar and the next week we were going on a family vacation. And the first one, you know, if you're watching this in real time, you know, we're recording this 2021. So, you know, our family vacations in 2020 did not happen, right? We stayed home. And so this was the first one in a long time. And this particular vacation was with a lot of other families, and it's a big drinking week. It's like, it's just, we have jokes. So like the drinking light is lit because it's this one emergency lamp that's on 24/7. And, you know, like, it's just, it's filtered into this whole experience. And I remember talking with a friend and she's like, well, what if you just stop after this week? And I said, but I've made this decision already. I had that sucking the thumb, that smoking, you know, that I had this decision. It was already, it was already in me. This decision was already in me. So I went through this week, didn't touch a drop, you know, drinks all around me, you know, morning, noon, and night. And it was almost like I had this little like secret that nobody else was in on. And part of me, I was like, am I going to be like the party pooper? Am I going to be like the grumpy, not fun one? And look, on a good day, I'm the grumpy, not fun one. That's kind of like who I am at parties. Like, I want to talk about, you know, like these deep, heavy topics and not, you know, party topics. And like, that's, you know, already my label. And I'm like, great. Well, without drinking, that's just, I mean, that's going to get worse. I'm going to feel more kind of pulled apart, you know, being an introvert and an empath and social anxiety and like all, you know, highly sensitive and all of the things I already come to parties with. And now I'm coming and not drinking.
Now you're coming sober.
Now I'm coming sober. And I'll tell you, out of all of the years I've taken this trip, this was the best one. It was. And I was not a party pooper. I even played games, which is not my jam either. So it's funny, like that whole just making a decision one time thing, it almost gave me the energy to participate more. It gave me the energy to be more present. It gave me the energy to be more open and go with the flow. And I'm not a flowy person. I'm a highly anxious person. So it had a cool kind of reverse effect for me.
Because I think it does free up energy, right? That's a whole section that you don't have to think about anymore, right? There's no decision will have to be made. Nothing. It's just already made for you. And it does give you back energy because you no longer have to spend energy deciding each situation. What are you going to do? What am I going to say? It's just, I don't know how many times I've been out and I really thought in the circle that I tend to, you know, hang out in that they would notice right away that I wasn't drinking. I can tell you they have absolutely no idea. They're so busy and doing their own thing. I would go so many nights and it was like a little secret thing. I'm like, nope, they all probably think I'm drinking. And it's just, you know, and you're having like sparkling water or you're having like a San Pellegrino or, you know, and it's funny. It's like, and I had so much fun and nobody cared, which I think was my biggest fear is that I'm going to lose friends over this, right? We're not going to have anything in common anymore. Because I, for some reason, thought that was a connection, was alcohol. And the connection wasn't the alcohol. And that I thought was really exciting for me was like, oh, the connection wasn't the alcohol. The connection is between us. And I'm becoming more aware of that. There's nothing dulling that anymore, which the alcohol was doing. So you're giving too much power to the alcohol in those situations, right?
Yeah. And I can imagine like any other major change, it could be the opposite
Mhm.
too. I've made other changes in my life that have nothing to do with what I'm consuming. I make a change and my relationships change.
Oh, yeah,
I don't jive with the people around me. So I can only imagine that could happen with,
it definitely could.
around this change. That's a testimonial to the quality of people that you are around if that's happening too. So that it's nice to know that that's a possibility as
Mhm.
well.
Right, because I mean, that's the other side of the coin is if you are losing people when you're bettering yourself, it's probably still a win,
Not
right?
super
As
good.
hard, right? As harsh as that sounds, if you
Yeah.
lose people in that situation when you're bettering yourself, you still won. Because
Yeah.
now people that are more in alignment with you, being an authentic, true you, they're going to start to show up and fill those spaces.
Yeah. So I don't want to do like an entire book review here because like it's, we could go on. There are so many good pieces. But again, like, if you were inspired by this, definitely, read the book. Holly has some great resources out there. Erin, what are some parting thoughts that, given the work that you do, your personal journey, your professional journey, what is a point from this whole conversation, whether it's a point from the book or from your own perception and experience, that you want to make sure we don't leave without putting on the table?
Actually, I have a favorite quote from the book that talk about like female empowerment that I absolutely loved. And of course, I like to have it tabbed and highlighted. But she states, for millennia, women have been told how to think, act, speak, be. They've been told not to trust their bodies, their intuition, their knowledge, their guiding force, their gut. No woman is more bereft in her sense of trust in herself than a woman confronting herself for the first time. For her whole damn life, the world has told her her worth is wrapped up in her looks, her service, and her submissiveness, that her power comes not from within, but from without. For her entire existence, she has trusted the advice of others who surely know her better about her than she does. How well did that work out for her? How well has suppressing our own knowledge in favor of what other people think worked out for any of us? I love that,
Boom.
right? Like, think
Mic
that sums up this
drop.
book in a nutshell.
That we're gonna have to pull that and put that as the caption, the show notes for this. I think that's it right there. And that's really why I wanted to have this conversation. Look, you and I are both health professionals. We could go on and on about, the biochemical parts and the lifestyle change and like making healthy choices for yourself so that you can feel better, so you can age more gracefully. But what I really wanted in this series, the second series of these conscious bodies conversations, was to talk about these macro topics, how, globally, collectively, or culturally, or different pockets, it's like the fish to water. We've created these structures, these conversations that when you are inside of them, you don't even know how what feels like personal decisions are not personal because they are determined by the collective. They are determined by these structures and frameworks that have been set up that you just flow into. And I think that this conversation is a reclamation of sorts. It is a way to kind of open your eyes, gain some of your own uh, wits about you back, and say, I will not be fooled anymore. And I'm going to take my own damn power
Mhm.
and use it. And you are not dimming it with your neurotoxins
Exactly.
anymore. So, oh my goodness, Erin, thank you. Thank you so much for having this conversation. I know we've been talking about doing it for a while. I know you have some awesome growth changes in the work that you are doing in health and wellness, kind of letting go of some things, moving into some awesome things. So,
Mhm.
you guys, Erin is the real deal with getting support for your own health and wellness from an empowered perspective. So Erin, where can people follow what you are doing and find out more?
Yeah, my website, everything is very simple. It's erinbakerhealth.com. It's Erin Baker Health on Facebook, and it's Erin Baker 22 on Instagram. And I'm all over the place. I'm constantly, sharing information. I love doing sessions, talking to people. I think that this information needs to get out there, and just reach out and we can chat. And I would love to, see how I can help.
Awesome. All right. I highly recommend. I send all of my new clients for a consultation with Erin. So I highly recommend that. And, if this kind of thing spoke to you and there are layers in your body, my angle is through movement. My work, Embodied Movement, can be found at embodiedmovementtraining.com. Same thing. I'd love to hear people's stories. There's a contact form on my website there. If something in this video spoke out to you or anything else you want to discuss on how to use movement to kind of rewire some of the signals that have gone haywire in your body, connecting your physical, emotional, and mental health. That is my jam, and I would love to hear your story. And tune in for the next episode of Conscious Body Conversations. Erin, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for watching. Have a great day.